Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the GSL-English podcast. My name is Gideon, and in this episode, we are going to talk about whether living abroad makes you fluent. Does moving to another country make you fluent in that country's language? So perhaps you're thinking of living abroad. Perhaps you've got plans to live abroad in another country in the near future. Or maybe you already are. How can we make the most of that time when living in that country, particularly when it comes to learning the language? And I want you to learn from my mistakes. I lived abroad and I did not become fluent in those languages. I lived in the Dominican Republic. I didn't become fluent in Spanish. I lived in Italy. I didn't become fluent in Italian. And I've done a lot of thinking, a lot of reminiscing on why I didn't get anywhere near the points that I wanted to with those languages. And I think I know why. So I'm going to share that with you today. But also we're going to look at some real life experiences of others that have moved to different countries, that have made the choice to live abroad. We're going to look at their challenges and success stories when learning the language, but also some challenges they faced just with daily life of living abroad, fitting in, cultural differences, integrating with the environment, the different society that you are living in. We're going to look at some experience of that, and also I'm going to share with you some tips on how you can make the most of your time living abroad, particularly when it comes to English. So if you are moving to an English-speaking country soon, perhaps you're going there for some time, this episode will definitely help you to make the most of that time and improve your English whilst you are wherever you are. So that's the theme of today's episode. If you are a returning viewer or listener, thank you so much for joining me again. I hope you've got a cup of tea or a cup of coffee on this fine Sunday morning. I do appreciate my new clock says Friday. I am recording this on a Friday, but it goes out on Sunday. So technically, if you're watching this on Sunday at 10 a.m. or any time on a Sunday, I'm not fussy, then I hope you're nice and relaxed. Got a blanket, a little bit chilly here in England. Grab yourself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, and just enjoy as always. And if you are new here, if you are new to this podcast, as I said, my name is Gideon. I'm an English teacher from just outside of London, and I create weekly episodes to help you improve your English in a relaxed and natural way. So we look at stories, articles, chit-chat episodes. We do everything just to best prepare you for using your English in real life situations. And that leads us very nicely onto today's topic. Life abroad. Life abroad. Have you ever lived abroad? Would you like to live abroad? Well, I think we always think if we're going to live abroad, we always think about the language aspect of things, don't we? And we think, oh, this is fantastic. I'm going to become fluent in that language. For example, let's imagine you are moving to Spain. Naturally, you'd think, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to live there for a year. I'm going to become fluent in Spanish. That very often doesn't happen. Moving abroad, moving to another country is not a guarantee of becoming fluent in that language. And that is for a variety of different reasons. But also there are some strong challenges that come with living abroad. I'm going to share some of mine with you a little bit later, but there's a lot more involved emotionally and mentally than just the business side of moving abroad. Maybe you've moved for work, maybe you're moving for family reasons. There's a lot more to it than just passports and visas. There's a real emotional toll, a mental toll that can make it extremely challenging, because moving to a new country can be exhilarating. It's exciting. What an amazing experience. What an adventure. But it often entails facing culture shocks, different cultures, different ways of life, different ways of doing things, different diets, acquiring a new language. And also, you find yourself constantly seeking a sense of belonging in some way in that country. So we're going to look at 4 genuine expatriate narratives that reflect both the joys and challenges of starting anew in a foreign land. So we're going to look at 4 examples of people that have moved abroad, expats, if you will, and they reflect both on the great times, but also the challenges that they had. So the first example that we're going to look at, if you're watching along with me on YouTube, of course, as always, read along with me. We're looking at Lindsay from Boston. Lisbon, Portugal. 1 year became 8. Sorry, not Lindsay, Lindy. Lindy initially intended to spend just 1 year in Lisbon. However, she quickly fell in love with the city's rhythm, cuisine, and community. The language posed the greatest initial challenge. Portuguese felt rapid and unfamiliar, making even simple interactions, such as purchasing groceries or asking for directions, daunting. Yet, Lindy was determined. She practiced daily, conversing with neighbours, navigating cafe orders, and slowly building her confidence. Her commitment led her to open a bagel shop, a venture that required her to use Portuguese consistently with suppliers, customers, and officials. 8 years later, Lisbon is not just her home, it has also shaped a new version of herself. So here we have this example of Lindy from Boston who said, look, I'm going to go to Lisbon in Portugal, and her intention, so her plan was to only spend 1 year there. This happens so often. When I moved to the Dominican Republic, I didn't think I was going to be there for 4 years, but I was. But she fell very quickly in love with Portugal, the city's rhythm, its flow, the way it ran, the cuisine, and the community. But what posed the greatest initial challenge, so the challenge from the go, from the very beginning, was the language. That posed or presented the greatest challenge. She said that, Portuguese, it felt rapid. When we describe something as rapid, it's fast, but also unfamiliar. It made, even simple interactions. You go to the shops, you buy some food, asking for directions. It was daunting, meaning that it was scary. And if you ever lived in another country, you'll understand that there's one thing learning a language at home, but when you go to that country, the speed at which people talk is just crazy. And you think, wait a minute, if I learned the wrong language? It's so fast. Everything assimilates. It all blends together. This is one of the things I noticed in the Dominican Republic. As I was trying to learn Spanish, I would learn phrases and I would go out and try and use them. But the responses were so fast that I couldn't keep up. And it was quite intimidating and in turn, quite discouraging. Even when you're just trying to do something simple. I don't know, go to the petrol station and pay for your petrol. It's so fast, it's so rapid, it's so unfamiliar, but even a simple task like that becomes scary. But where I liked Lindy's example was that she was determined. So what did she do? She practiced daily. She conversed, spoke with neighbours. She navigated those cafe orders. She got through it. And in time, it doesn't say that she slowly became fluent. It says she slowly built her confidence. And that's one of the main points that leads to improving our language or becoming fluent. It's not just about language. It's up here. It's in the mind. It's emotional. But imagine if she'd just given up. She wouldn't have ever improved her language. Yes, she was living abroad, but that in and of itself was not going to make her fluent. It was her determination. Getting over those hurdles, keep practicing, conversing. That's a difficult bit. Conversing with neighbours, friends, whatever. Building her confidence. And because of that commitment, because of that determination, she was able to do something incredible in this foreign country. She opened a bagel shop, a venture or a business kind of route that required her to use Portuguese consistently with suppliers, customers, and officials. All different ways of speaking the language, but if she hadn't committed to it, if she hadn't been determined, none of this would have happened. She probably would have spent her year and that was it. And now she's been there 8 years. And I like the point, it's not just her home, but it's also shaped a new version of herself. Yes, it's daunting living abroad. The language, to be honest, I found it, particularly in Italy actually, quite terrifying. But determination is what will help you to reach those goals. Another experience we have is Louise from Edinburgh. Barcelona, Spain, a dream that fell apart. Louise and her husband relocated to Barcelona, envisioning a life filled with sunshine and leisurely lunches by the sea. However, the language barrier proved overwhelming. While they managed basic Spanish, Catalan was even more challenging. Everyday tasks such as banking or visiting a doctor were stressful, and forming local friendships seemed nearly impossible. Without language fluency, work opportunities were also scarce. Instead of integrating, they found themselves confined to an expat bubble. After a year, they returned to Edinburgh, realizing that while beautiful surroundings are appealing, true belonging is rooted in language. So I included this example in there because it shows how important getting involved with the language is. So they had this idea, I think we've all had it, you move into a hot country, particularly if you live in a cold country like England, and you envision this life filled with sunshine, lunches by the sea, siesta, I don't know, after lunch, whatever. You have this kind of idea. But for them, the language barrier, so the barrier, the wall that language puts up between us and natives, it proved overwhelming. If something is overwhelming, it's too much. So they managed basic Spanish. But Catalan, the form of Spanish, was even more challenging. Everyday tasks, such as going to the bank, visiting a doctor, were stressful, much like the experience before of Lindy. And because of the lack of language fluency, work opportunities were also scarce. There weren't a lot of them at all, of course, because they couldn't speak the language. And they found that instead of integrating with society, instead of getting involved, they kind of found themselves confined to an expat bubble. This is one of the dangers of living abroad and reaching fluency. And it's one of the massive mistakes that I made. You can kind of, when you're struggling with a language, what you do is you find people that speak your own language just to feel a bit more like at home, naturally, to feel comfortable, to feel relaxed. But the problem is, there's nothing wrong with having that, but you kind of stay in that bubble because it's a comfort zone. And then the more time you spend in that bubble, the more time you're afraid to go out of it. And for them, being in this expat bubble, so people that spoke English, they didn't really interact with Spanish speakers. And because of this, they ended up moving back to Edinburgh. And of course, that's by no means a failure. They gave it a go. They gave it a try. It didn't quite work out. But what was the difference between her and Lindy? Lindy was determined. They had the same struggles at the beginning, didn't they? Lindy was determined to push through it, to get out of that bubble, to go through daunting situations, of course, make mistakes, and then improve each time. But in this example, it was just too much. It was overwhelming. And I think you all go through that stage where it is overwhelming. It does feel like it's too much, but the more you just kind of push yourself, in a weird way, the easier it gets. But finding that bubble when you live abroad of ones that speak your language, it is a good thing to do in the sense of your mental health, feeling at home. But don't make that your only bubble. When we're living abroad, we want to integrate with society. So we have our little bubble that makes us feel at home. We speak our native language, but we've got to get out of that bubble as much as we can every day, speaking the language that we are living in. And that is one of the massive mistakes that I made. I had my amazing friends out there and I was just comfortable with them. And I didn't make an effort to really speak with native speakers, particularly in Dominican Republic, and it was just a really silly idea, and I regret it, but it happens because you feel comfortable. Another example from Cassia, Paris, France, 5 years of perseverance. Cassia moved to Paris for love, dreaming of romance and cafe culture along the Seine. The reality, however, proved tougher. The French spoke rapidly, often using slang she didn't understand, leaving her feeling invisible, reduced to the foreigner who couldn't speak. While she relied on teaching English and freelance writing, she aspired to establish her own career in Paris. After 5 years of relentless effort, studying, practicing, and pushing herself to use French in every context, Cassia finally felt at home. She now runs her own business in Paris, crediting persistence as the key. Love drew her to Paris, but the language gave her a life. Great experience here. Again, moved to Paris with these ideas of how it was going to go, but the reality proved tougher. We often look at living abroad with rose-tinted glasses. Oh, it's just going to be amazing. It's going to be romantic. It's going to be an adventure, which is true. But here again, the French spoke rapidly. They spoke quickly. They used slang that you don't understand. And this is one of the biggest problems when you go to another language, is the speed, but also the dialect, the slang, the terms that we haven't learned from a textbook, that we haven't learned from the GSL-English podcast, although I really hope you have. And then you kind of have this identity as the foreigner who can't speak. So you might go along with your friends, but then you kind of get this identity as the one that can't speak the language. But what was it in this example that helped her? Relentless effort. That means if you do something relentlessly, you're not giving up. Not at all. You commit to it. So she studied, she practiced, and pushed herself to use French in every context. In time, Cassia finally felt at home. So was living abroad enough? Was moving to the country enough? No. That did not make her fluent. That's just a flight. That's just visas. That's just accommodation. Relentless effort. Study, practice, context. But exploiting the opportunity you have to have all of those native speakers around you. But isn't it true that with Cassia, she made the choice to use French? She made the choice to talk with others. She made the choice to have conversations. So when we live abroad, although it's challenging, we have this incredible opportunity that once we step out our door, we have conversations, potentials galore, if we want it. Perseverance, relentless effort, and persistence. Last example, the Phoenix family from the UK, rural Bulgaria, it's a difficult move, hard winters and harsh lessons. The Phoenix family moved to Bulgaria, enticed by affordable housing and the dream of a simple rural life. The reality was far harsher. They were victims of a property scam, and winters plummeted to minus 30 degrees Celsius, leaving them feeling isolated in a region where English was scarcely spoken. The language barrier was their greatest challenge. The Cyrillic script, apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly, and unfamiliar sounds made Bulgarian difficult to learn, slowing their integration. Nonetheless, they persevered by renovating their home and gradually finding ways to connect with their neighbours. Their story serves as a reminder that while moving abroad can be rewarding, without language skills and preparation, it can become a struggle for survival. Now, this is a very extreme case. Moving to a country with minus 30 degrees. Can you imagine that? We've had quite a hot weather here recently in England. It's been absolutely lovely. And yesterday it dropped, I think, to 15 degrees and I was shivering. Minus 30. No, thank you. Not interested. But this was, an extreme example. Unfortunately, they were victims of a property scam. This can quite often happen when you are moving to another country. Your naivety is often exploited. Of course, then maybe they bought a property or they put a deposit down on a rental and they were scammed out of their money. A scam is a ploy to take your money and not give you what you paid for. And this left them feeling isolated. Now, of course, this is an extreme example, but one of the biggest difficulties that we face when living abroad is isolation, particularly if you do it on your own. Isolation is the thing that can really stop us progressing. And again, as we spoke about earlier, this isn't just, when you live abroad, it's not just an academic process. You've got the mental health, your mental health to think about, the emotions, the physical side of it. And isolation can really be the factor that makes us give up. And again, the language barrier, that wall between us and the native speakers of the country, that was the greatest challenge. But what did they do? They persevered. They renovated, or they did up their home. They found ways to connect with their neighbours. Perseverance. They didn't give up. They could have done. I mean, if anyone had reason to give up, they did, didn't they? Being scammed, minus 30. If that was me, I'd be out of there. I tried. It is what it is. But again, they persevered. But without language skills and preparation, that's the point that we're going to talk about in a moment. You know, for them, this was a matter of survival. It's very interesting, isn't it, that with all of these examples, living abroad was not the factor that made them fluent. Living abroad was not a guarantee for them to make them fluent. As we said, that's a flight, that's a visa, that's a work opportunity. The fluency comes from making the most of that opportunity with determination, persistence, and confidence. If you want to become fluent whilst living abroad, you've got to be confident. Not overconfident in an arrogant way. I'm talking about confidence to use the language, to practice the language, to go for it. You know, rather than just as briefly as you can ordering a coffee, throwing in a "how are you?" "How's your day?" Talking to a stranger at the bus stop. Confidence, perseverance, and I like the point, I can't remember whose example it was, but relentless effort is what makes you fluent when living abroad. But one thing to remember is, I'm not bashing living abroad at all, but I think sometimes we can come up with this kind of false idea that living abroad is enough. I had that. I just thought naturally I would integrate with society. Naturally I would learn the language. It doesn't happen naturally. It happens with effort. It happens with making mistakes. It happens with putting yourself out there. But the reality is, if you are confident and you do put yourself out there, you have a plethora of people to talk to. And that is where living abroad is incredible for learning a language, if you make the most of the opportunity. So tips, here's some tips for living abroad and learning the language. How many did I put down? Okay, we've got 10. The first is learn basics before you go. I went out to the Dominican Republic. I didn't really know a lot. I knew a couple of greetings, but I didn't know numbers. I didn't know directions. I didn't really know food. Massive mistakes. Learn the basics before you go. So don't just think, right, I'll start when I get there. No. Before you go, learn greetings, numbers, directions. Of course, if your language is English and you're listening to the podcast, you're already at that point. If you are thinking of doing this with another language, greetings, numbers, directions, food, emergencies, things like that. Learn the basics before you go. The second is immerse daily. If you are immersed in something, you are completely surrounded by it. Change your phone settings to the language of the country you're moving to. Watch local TV, read signs, be observant, talk with people, but immerse yourself daily, even before you go, but whilst you are out there. Don't get into your own language bubble. You've got to burst that bubble and get out there. Because I kind of found that with that bubble, okay, and you put more in it. So you put your comfort zones, your TV shows from home in your native language, your friends that speak your language. And what happens over time is the skin of that bubble, if you will, I don't know if that's the technical term. It gets thicker and thicker and thicker and more solid, and it's so much harder to penetrate. It's so much harder to burst. Stay out of that bubble. Join communities if you can. Volunteer, join clubs, attend events, get stuck in. If you're out in another country now, get stuck in. Find ways to meet and talk with people. Be patient. You'll go through a frustration stage where you come home after being at the shops and you think, oh, why am I bothering? They don't understand me. I'm rubbish. Don't worry about it. You'll go through it, but it passes. Perseverance, confidence. If you're at that frustration stage right now, keep going. Don't give up. Just keep pushing through it. Next time you go to the shops, say it with confidence. Have conversations with confidence. Fifth area is to embrace mistakes. Errors are stepping stones, not failures. Mistakes will happen. People might laugh at you, might not understand you, give you a strange look. Who cares? You've got to make the most of this opportunity. Balance comfort and challenge. Use your native language sometimes, but push yourself. I kind of did this a lot when I was living abroad. I'll try a little bit in Spanish or Italian. Then they wouldn't get it, wouldn't understand me naturally because I was a bit rubbish. And then I'd just kind of divert to this weird form of Spanglish or Italian English. And that's even worse, isn't it? I'm not speaking English or Italian or Spanish. I'm speaking this weird concoction of just trying to get them to understand. It's okay to use our native language sometimes, but whenever you can, push yourself. Seventh point, this really helped me out, is get help with bureaucracy. Translators or bilingual friends save stress. Don't try and do it all on your own if you're living abroad. If you can, get help with the official stuff. The documents, the visas, the permits. Get help with it. Even if you are an advanced learner or speaker of that language, I would recommend, translators, professional translators or friends that have lived out there. They know the system. It's so easy to make a mistake and then that can send everything tumbling pretty quickly. Get help if you can. Find emotional support. As we said, this isn't just an academic move. This is an emotional one. Connect with friends, other expats, or seek online counselling if you are really struggling. Make learning fun. Engage with the culture. Go to food events, music events, go to the sports grounds, not just for the language, but understand the culture, understand the people. One thing I used to love, we used to live in a town called Puerto Plata, and they had the Malecon in the evenings on a Sunday. The music was pumping, people were dancing. And my wife and I, we'd walk down there, and it just gave you an understanding of the culture a lot more, that helped you to understand the realities of daily life. Sometimes things take a little bit longer than we're used to. Sometimes queues aren't as orderly as we're used to. But maybe that's not a negative thing. Maybe they're just more relaxed. Maybe we can learn a thing or two from that. And I learned that definitely when in the Dominican Republic, particularly coming from London area of England. Not everything has to be so serious. Enjoy life. Have a dance. Don't worry about what everyone thinks. But when you understand that culture, it makes it a lot easier to live and let the minor inconveniences go. And the fourth point is remember your why. Why are you doing this? For love of the country, adventure, career, curiosity. Just trying to live your life. Whatever it is, remember why you were there. On those days where you do come back frustrated, the days where you do come back annoyed, think to yourself, this is why I'm doing it. That's my reason, and I'm not going to give up. So what we're going to do now is just explain some of the vocabulary that we looked at throughout this episode. First word is we describe something as intimidating. Intimidating. If something is intimidating, it's something that makes you feel nervous or scared. We use the term expat a lot. An expat is a person who lives outside their native country. And we spoke about the expat bubble. That is staying only with other foreigners, not integrating with the locals. We use the term slang. Slang is informal language or expressions used in everyday speech. And when we talk about fluency, it's being able to speak a language smoothly and easily. It is not perfection. We spoke about persistence, continuing to try even when it's difficult. We spoke about integration, becoming part of the local community and culture, getting involved, getting stuck in with everyone. Bureaucracy, official systems and paperwork, usually slow and complicated, very boring. I hate the stuff. Cyrillic and alphabets used in languages like Russian and Bulgarian. And resilience, the ability to recover from difficulties or challenges. So a final thought for you. Living abroad is rarely easy, but it is invariably transformative. The language you acquire doesn't merely enable you to order food or complete forms. It opens doors to friendships, belonging, and a deeper comprehension of your new home. Living abroad most certainly comes with its challenges. If you've done it, we've all got individual challenges. It's not easy, but it is one of the most life-changing things we can do, particularly when it does come to a language. It makes it a lot easier. But does living abroad make us fluent? No. Persistence does. Confidence does. And making the most of that opportunity does. So, you've got a network full of people that are speaking that language. Go out and exploit it. If you're currently in a foreign language and you're feeling reserved, you're feeling, a little bit out of that, get out there, get stuck in. Don't waste the opportunity you have to practice your English with native speakers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're listening on Spotify, I do always appreciate it, and I'll see you all soon. Have a good one, guys.